Hey dumplings, it's Dave Decide. Today we have some interesting tea and theories, one involving Eunha from GFriend and of course Jungkook. There's a theory that the two were at a restaurant together, and I also want to get into the company addressing another rumor. So hater or not, make sure you're subscribed with the notification bell on. Grab your dumpling, tea spilling mug merch, and let's get into it. The first thing that I wanted to do is get into some theories and craziness surrounding what BTS has to deal with on their day-to-day. I think it's really awesome that we have this medium and this ability to be able to ask certain questions to the boys or connect with them in a way we could never have been able to do back before social media and before reporters were allowed to speak directly with BTS. However, sometimes theories on the internet take a whole different approach to a situation and blow it out of proportion, or it ends up being spun into something it's not. It's this game of telephone, and it's always going to stray more into a negative story than one that is good. And for some reason, we're all more likely to believe a bad thing about a person and believe that someone we like did a bad thing. But it's rarely ever the case, and we rarely know the full story. Basically, what I am talking about is back a little while ago, BTS was accused by a reporter that their Wings album was quote-unquote problematic and was plagiarized. This was during the press event. I believe the press event was for BTS's newer work. BTS always has a Q&A section where they open the floor up to questions and concerns, and this reporter was called on and brought up BTS's older album. And this was interesting to me because, as I said, I think it's great that we have the ability to talk to them, but to ask them a question that is very demeaning and very integrity ripping, it's not an appropriate thing to do. What is the best case scenario for asking a question like this? Questioning an artist's integrity and their intellectual property. If you don't like their work or think that the work is plagiarized, then don't attend the event. Best case scenario, BTS denies it and leaves you alone. Worst case scenario, you get banned from ever being allowed at a BTS press event. Because even if it was stolen, which it's not, why would any artist publicly admit to stealing someone's work? Like, you ask them this question and they're like, yeah, I did it. Haha, I'm so quirky for committing theft. No one would do that. So the question was meant to kind of start an argument, and the reporter knew that because they were stuttering to ask this question, meaning they knew it would start some sort of fire. So backtrack a little bit, where did these plagiarisms claim come from? There was apparently an article that talked about Wings and Blood, Sweat and Tears being plagiarized from a French artist. The French artist put out a post or a letter that claimed that BTS's work seemed inspired by his and was honored. The French artist did not think it was copied nor had any problems with BTS's work. But the news article and articles took the original letter and kind of twisted the words to make it appear like he was accusing BTS of plagiarism, and the French artist had to ultimately put out a statement to clarify this was not the case. However, the initial story got more traction than the statement that claimed the French artist did not mean BTS copied his work. So the reporter at this press event only got wind of the initial story and was trying to ask what BTS thought about that article and what BTS's thoughts were on the plagiarism. Again, these are not questions to ask because the best case scenario after you ask that question is still not a good one. It doesn't result in anything or really much of a story. It only makes it seem like you're a bad reporter for not knowing the full story. And if BTS was aware of this, which I assume the reporter knew, otherwise asking that question would make no sense if BTS had no idea these accusations were happening. But if BTS knew, then there would be a pending dispute, meaning they can't talk about it, which apparently is kind of what happened. Suga took the mic and addressed the reporter and said that Big Hit or HYBE's legal team was looking into this and BTS will take the position of whatever their company decides. And ultimately, it ended up being okay. I think there was an important lesson here to not just believe everything you read online. There's always two sides of a story, and it seemed like BTS and the French artist's story were all twisted in a weird way. Imagine saying, I am so inspired and in awe that BTS did something similar to what I have done, and that be taken as accusing them of stealing. It's really weird, and this is why quote-unquote scandals should not be brought up in interviews, because no one knows the full story, and the media 90% of the time gets it wrong. This part is not about BTS, but just in general. Artists can't actually say how they feel about their scandals or issues for either legal reasons, the real explanation not being PC to be able to publicly say, something in the back end that happened that they can't talk about concerning a private person that they don't want to put a spotlight on, or even this idea that something the artist did is an industry practice this and they don't feel like they've done anything wrong because everyone else around them does it, but they get hate for it. Never judge a person from what we see on the news or in the rumors. There's always another story and one we never see. Of course, there's times where the media doesn't get it wrong. The real story is just awful and as crazy as the news makes it to be, but that's just not what we're talking about today. I was seeing rumors and theories online about Eunha and Jungkook dating. Eunha is from GFriend and they are signed under Big Hit. It's a different label, but it's owned by the same company, meaning BTS and GFriend likely share resources with each other and probably run into each other often enough. This is important to keep in mind. Jungkook gets shipped with every member that exists and every girl group. Especially the more popular the girl group gets, the more shipping is likely to occur. And even the more popular boy groups get shipped with Jungkook. You will know you've made it when you get shipped with Jungkook. And I don't have a problem with these theories. I think they're fun and great, and ultimately it's so cute and fun to see what people think. I love hearing other opinions, and it's just fun to see how people perceive the pictures and posts that we see of idols online. No hate for any of these theories, I just like to talk about them and give my thoughts. These theories today are less of Eunha and Jungkook staring at each other at award shows. While there's plenty of those, I wanted to get into the more interesting ones. It was theorized some time ago that Jungkook really likes clouds. He enjoys something about clouds, the meaning behind them. In fact, one of his dogs is named Gurum, which means cloudy in Korean. So clouds are something that is important to him. And there's an artistic meaning behind it for him. This was interesting when people noticed that Eunha's Instagram photo was captioned with clouds. So this was just a theory that clouds were meant for Jungkook. But there's no doubt clouds are something important to Jungkook. Clouds also exist outside of Jungkook's world. They exist for other reasons, like whatever they do in the sky that's so important. A lot of idols will keep captions short because if she made a post about how beautiful the day was and whatever, people could theorize that Eunha was with 7 other male idols that day or whatever because the caption matches what those 7 idols may or may not have done that day. Of course, there's tons of these moments. I thought this was interesting because I actually didn't know that Jungkook had done a lot with clouds and that he finds them fascinating. Because clouds are weird things that kind of exist and are peaceful, and other times they're just clouds with no meaning. There was another theory that was a bit more interesting where a restaurant owner in Seoul had Eunha enter the restaurant and like a live posted what Eunha did. I guess the staff was a fan or something and Eunha was nice enough to leave her signature on a napkin. Nowadays we would call that napkin an NFT, but anyway, when that was posted within that day, people were surprised because there was also paparazzi footage of Jungkook walking around Seoul at night and people believing that he possibly left a restaurant too. However, interestingly enough, there was not enough evidence of what restaurant he left or if it was even a restaurant. We just saw him walking around. It was reported by these accounts that when Eunha had left the restaurant, it was said that she was there with her friends. So the theory is Eunha was there at a restaurant with a few people. And then suddenly we see Jungkook walking about. However, this was in Seoul, so there's a lot of idols there always that either live there or are there for business. If you ever want to meet American celebrities, you either go to New York or LA. If you want to meet K-pop singers, you hang around Seoul and you'll see some probably. So it's not really that weird to think that Jungkook was in transit at the time. And we actually don't even know how live the restaurant's owner's post actually was. Or did they wait until Eunha left? Because a lot of people in Seoul and places celebrity hang out will wait hours later before posting to make sure that the idol has fully left the area to make sure they don't get mobbed or whatever. Let me know what you think, and if you want to see more K-pop reaction videos, go to my Patreon, link below. I can't post them here due to copyright, but you can get all sorts of reaction videos and requests over there. It's a great way to support the channel even more if you would like to. Thank you so much for this lovely comment right here. I love you so much. There'll be some videos that will pop up on screen and I will see you over there. Bye.